He didn't answer any of my questions.
That is not true.
Young, dumb, and full of eggs and doing me.
There's no way I've gone through too much.
I think the weight even became heavier for you that, well, if he's not, that's even more probability that I could be.
No! No, God, no, God.
Big life-changing moments cannot be easy, and that's what happened in Season 7 of Paternity Court. The plaintiff David Wheat, a machine worker from Texas, showed up with a rather strange issue. He believed he'd been robbed of the experience of fatherhood.
You claim you've been robbed as a father. You are desperate to prove to the defendant that you fathered her 19-year-old daughter, Sierra Sloan. You want to make up for lost time.
Well, this gentleman arrived at Paternity Court with the hopes of being Sierra's father. But guess what? This story dates way back. It all began with a one-night stand 19 years ago. He only wanted to make up for lost time and just purely wanted to be a father. However, Charlene Greider, the defendant, claimed that Mr. Wheat was not the father, even though she would have really liked him to be. And where does Sierra, the daughter, stand in the middle of all this?
Miss Sloan, you say you are the victim in this paternity chaos and deserve to know who your dad is.
Yes, Your Honor.
The poor daughter was so caught up in between that indeed at the end of it, she was the victim, and she badly wanted to know who her real father was. When Judge Lauren asked Charlene to explain why she thought Mr. Wheat was not the father, she said,
Explain to the court why you are so certain.
Because I was 19, I was young, dumb, and full of eggs, and I was doing me.
Young, dumb, and full of eggs and doing me. I don't think I've ever heard it explained like that.
Nor have we. While the mother seems to just laugh it off, the judge then goes on to ask David what the nature of the relationship was like.
Mr. Wheat, tell me the nature of your relationship with Miss Greider. How did you meet? How did the relationship begin? Tell the court.
David then explains to the court that they went to school together and met years later at a bar, and it turned into a one-night stand.
I ran into her at a club called Texas Nightlife. Kind of had a one-night stand.
But Charlene soon started getting doubts once her daughter started to show different features from those of David.
Because she started to get darker and everything. And
Charlene was then asked how many men she was with during that time frame, and her answer shocked the entire court. Take a look.
So how many guys were you with during the window of time your daughter was conceived?
4.
4 different guys. And Mr. Wheat is one of them.
Yes.
She further went on to reveal that Mac Greider, one among the 4 who she later went on to marry, had signed the birth certificate for the baby.
Miss Greider, who signs the birth certificate? Does anybody sign the birth certificate?
Yes, Your Honor. Mac Greider did.
And he too believed he was the father, as he had looked after Sierra like his own child for all those years.
Were you there throughout her pregnancy and birth?
Yes, ma'am. I was there, went to the doctor appointments. I named her, I signed the birth certificate.
And then came the shocking revelation that nobody saw coming. It was time for the results.
When it comes to 19-year-old Sierra Sloan, it has been determined by this court, Mr. Greider, you are not the father.
And if that wasn't enough, there was more.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Greider.
I still love her no matter what.
And I saw you, Mr. Wheat, because once I said Mr. Greider was not the biological father, I think the weight even became heavier for you that, well, if he's not, that's even more probability that I could be.
The 2 men were disappointed and had tears in their eyes from receiving the news. And there's no saying about Sierra. The girl who already felt like a victim was totally devastated. Next up, Donna Andrews received the shock of her life when a stranger approached her at a restaurant and told her that he was her father. This stranger even had her name tattooed on his leg. Creepy much? Here's what happened. Mr. William Glenn told the court that he kept it a secret for 30 years, and he kept quiet because she was being raised by a good family and did not want to interfere with that. He finally had the evidence that could help him prove that he was the father of Miss Donna.
You say you now believe you have evidence to prove that you are Ms. Andrews' father, and you believe today's DNA results will verify your claim.
That's right, Your Honor.
However, Miss Donna said that she did not believe he was the father and that she was raised by Roger, who was indeed her real father.
I was raised by the father. My biological father was in my life. I've never known a Mr. Glenn. I don't know him.
You never knew Mr. Glenn?
I knew of him, but I did not know him enough to say, hey, you're my dad, and now all of a sudden. I knew that he was the father of my youngest sister.
Okay.
Okay. Supposedly we had different fathers.
While she was grieving the loss of her father, who died on her due date with her second child, the stranger approaching with crazy news like this was of no help.
He's my father. Now it's bringing more complications, and now I need answers. I need answers. I need to know what's going on.
Glenn explains to the court that he had a relationship with Donna's mother, and he left for 8 months, but when he came back, he got to know something.
Me and her mother grew up together, raised up together, and we started dating in '76. And then I left for about 8 months. And I came back, Donna was born. She was about 2-3 months old, right?
You left town?
Yes, I left town.
By the time you come back, she had a baby.
Right, but she didn't never tell me
but
that
she never came and told you
that she was pregnant.
But Donna's mother never confirmed anything to Glenn. But there was a problem.
Mr. Glenn, it put me in depression. It seems to me like a coward move. It does. You wait till he died. You wait till our mother passed away. We don't have nobody word but your word now. You're only your word.
And the DNA,
and that's you could have did DNA when I was young. I'm struggling. I have children, and I'm doing just fine. I've got a degree. I'm in graduate school. I'm doing just fine now.
Africa Gates, Donna's sister, was called to the stand, and she said she did not believe he was the father, as he had plenty of opportunities to claim his right when she was a child, and found it weird that he chose to speak up only after the death of Roger and their mother.
He had opportunity to be a father to her, even
so
when she was like a baby.
If he is the father of your younger sister, why not just say, I'm also the father
exactly.
of...
You know, he had opportunity. He said that she was raised in a good family. She was raised, her father's family was, and he is, Roger Andrews is her father. He had opportunity to say this when she was an infant, before she even established a bond with this family, with the Andrews family.
The judge then revealed the truth, and it sent a wave of shock over everyone.
When it comes to the paternity of Ms. Donna Andrews, Mr. Glenn, you are her father.
Oh my God.
Donna was in shock and began crying, and we can't even imagine how heartbreaking it must have been.
No, no.
Hey, just leave him alone. Just leave him.
No. No, God, no, God.
Ooh, what a tearjerker. In season 7, Mercedes Henderson believed that Mr. Henderson was her biological father, but at the age of 15, Mr. Rycroft claimed that he was the actual father instead.
Mr. Henderson was your biological father, but at the age of 15, Mr. Rycroft claimed he is your dad. You are doubtful and have opened today's case to get the truth. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Rycroft was present with the twin sister of Mercedes' mother, who also believes that Rycroft was the actual father. Mercedes said that she finally was ready for the truth, and this is why she wanted to know the truth.
It's lonely. My kids, they want to know their grandparents, and my daughter, she tells me all the time, Mom, we're gonna find your dad. So, you know, I'm just ready. I want to be close to somebody. I want to be close to them. I've always been close to him, but I need to know the truth.
Mr. Henderson was with her mother at the time of her birth, and is even on the birth certificate.
Are you on the birth certificate?
No.
You are. You are.
I am?
You are.
Oh, I didn't know. Been a long time, Your Honor.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if she was married to you, then you would likely be on the birth certificate as father.
Father.
There you are, Walter Henderson.
Yes, that's me.
Her aunt was the one to reveal Mr. Rycroft to her, and when they met, the two had a great connection. But her mother had told her about a different third man who was the supposed biological father, and here's why.
I asked my mom after that about him, and she told me, she said, I don't know why William thinks he's your dad, because the last time I was with him, I was 18, and I had you when I was 25 or 26.
But only the aunt knew the truth, or that's what she believes her sister said.
I said, who is her daddy? I said, you can't lie to me because we twins. Who is her daddy? And she said, William.
When the DNA results were in, everyone was stunned, and here are the results.
As it relates to this other gentleman, the probability of paternity was determined to be 0.00%. In the case of Henderson versus Rycroft, when it comes to 33-year-old Mercedes Henderson, it has been determined by this court. Mr. Henderson, you are not the father.
And so what does that mean? Was Mr. Rycroft the father? Well, let's see.
In the case of Henderson versus Rycroft, Mr. Rycroft, you are not the father.
You are, Dad.
I'm so sorry. I'm very sorry, Miss Henderson.
Neither Mr. Henderson nor Mr. Rycroft were the father, and Mr. Rycroft began to cry. Then, who was? In Season 3's Dandridge versus Sigmund case, Dandridge believed that she had finally located her long-lost biological father. Dandridge recently received the name she claims her biological father gave her. She then goes on to describe how she learned about it, up until she saw this.
I was old enough to know how to read, and I found adoption papers stating that my dad wasn't my dad, that I believed was my dad.
You found adoption papers indicating that the man you thought was your father had in fact adopted you.
Yes, ma'am.
What a disappointment, right? When she asked about it with her mother, she learned this.
She was never forthcoming. She was always, I don't know who your dad is, or he didn't want you. You know, she was just mean to me.
Finding out about her dad was not easy either. She posted a status on her Facebook, and this is what happened.
Roughly 3 months ago, I posted on Facebook, this status may hurt some people's feelings, but I really want to know who my dad is. And my mom, she got on there and she told me that I was a liar and that I never asked who my dad was and just threw his name at me. And then after she gave me that name, she told me to never contact her again.
Dandridge wanted to know about the DNA match with her claimed biological father, and the first time she sees him, this is what happened. Sigmund then goes on to describe how he met Dandridge's mother.
I was in shock because I was told when I was younger I was sterile, that I couldn't have kids. But I was at the right place at the right time with her mother down in Florida.
Sigmund's relationship with her mother ended when he talked about marriage, and Sigmund made bad choices, which ended up with him getting kicked out of Florida.
I drifted down into Florida, down the boardwalk. I met this lady, she tapped me on the shoulder, which was her mother.
And based on what he stated, it appears that she may have finally discovered her long-lost father. But tragically, this is what the results reveal.
Mr. Sigmund, you are not her father. Sit her down, Mr. Sigmund. Just put her down.
Then in Season 3, we were introduced to the case of St. James versus Esau. Miss St. James believed that she was Daddy's girl her whole life, but 33 years later, in an argument, her so-called dad revealed that he was not actually her father. She and her brother together opened a case to prove paternity. Mr. Esau always knew he was not his daughter, but could never find a right time to tell her the truth, and it felt like it was haunting him. Months ago, when St. James confronted, he revealed the reason for why he was being this way.
A couple weeks before Christmas, just telling him how I felt about him not being in his grandchildren's lives and how he's not being the father that we need since we lost our mother at a young age. And that was his response, is the reason why I haven't been in your life is because the reason why he didn't answer any of my questions.
That is not true.
He basically responded 3 days later with the reason why you went through the things you did as a child is because you're not my daughter.
And that was the first time she was hearing about it. But according to Mr. Esau, the timelines never added up.
And it wasn't until the doctor told her how far along she was, and doing the math, it was, before me. And, so it wasn't like she was cheating on me, because we had just started. She was already pregnant prior to us meeting.
That was what you believe.
But was this an assumption, or was it a fact? Before we get on with the results, hear what St. James had to say.
Since December 8th or whatever day it was that you decided to say you're not my daddy no more. If you don't want to be my daddy, you don't have to be.
And then came the results.
When it comes to 33-year-old Jasmine St. James, it has been determined by this court. Mr. Esau.
Yes, Your Honor.
You are not the father.
Can I give her a hug?
That's better. I can accept that.
Ouch! And now, the Jones versus Milan case. Quinnell Jones says that Miss Milan is lying about who was the real father of her 3-month-old son Quinnell Jr. He said that he had taken in Miss Milan and her 6 other children, but this baby was not his. He also wanted $1,500 for housing and child support. Miss Milan did admit to cheating on Mr. Jones, but she says that she is not sure of the timelines, and she was here to prove to Mr. Jones that he indeed was the father.
She was like, I had sex with my ex or whatever like that, so she was like, it's a possibility it could have been him too.
So she tells you?
She tells
right
you,
off
being
the bat.
honest, right off the bat.
It could be
She was
yours.
Straightforward.
It could be his.
Mr. Jones's mother said that she contacted the court days after the baby was born because she did not want to see her son in pain. The two were neighbors at the time, and when friendships turned into something more, Milan chose her ex over Mr. Jones. But here's the twist. Mr. Jones was told that he will not be able to have children during a full-body medical exam in his early years.
I used to play sports in school or whatever, so I had to have a full-body physical, and they told me that I wasn't able to have kids.
So during a physical, they told you you would be unable to have children?
Yes, ma'am.
Even when Milan told him that it was only a possibility that the baby was his, he still decided to step up and be there for the baby even though they were separated at the time. Jones's mother becomes emotional as she reveals that she motivated him to stay for the pregnancy till they find out the truth because she didn't want him to make the same mistakes his father did.
I was at the hospital, like I told my son, just be there until we find out otherwise because I raised him without a father. And every child needs their parents. And I don't want him to be the man that his father. I want him to be a better man.
But this was the result.
Mr. Jones, you are not the father. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry. I didn't know.
You okay, Mr. Jones?
I'm ready to go.
I'm sorry.
And then came a really powerful statement.
Because I get to witness the power of forgiveness, humanity, compassion on a daily basis.
Which of these was the most heartbreaking? Let us know.